YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Guys, I'm going to just tell you real quick, I have been busier the last couple weeks than I have been the entire season. Trying to get everything ready from contracts to, getting my boat and truck wrap done, jerseys, you name it. It has been a big time process for me lately. But I'm kind of getting caught up on everything and getting everything set up to where I need to get the season for 2023 started. Just picked up my truck and boat from the wrap garage up in Rockwall. And let me tell you, I really love my new wrap. It really is exactly what I've been wanting for quite some time. And I want y'all to take a look at it and let me know what you think in the comment section below. It's by far, in my opinion, for me, my favorite wrap that I've ever had. When I look at wraps, I want something that's really easy to see, read, very clean looking. And that is exactly what you get in this wrap, and I just really impressed with it. But let's talk about the topic at hand. I didn't get to fish the Brandon Belt tournament. I didn't get to fish the Toyota Series last weekend at Rayburn, or the Outlaw Outdoors tournament on Saturday, and mainly because I haven't had a boat and truck. I haven't had any access to a boat or truck for like a past week and a half. And so I kind of missed a couple really big tournaments here in this particular area where I'm at around Sam Rayburn, Toledo Bend. Well, there was, I think Dakota Ebear won the Toyota Series, and you actually look on that particular day, on day 2, I want to say there was like 5 bags over 25 pounds that particular day, when the first day, the biggest bag was 23 pounds. And I'm just going to argue to say one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the last week in January, for whatever reason it is, the last 7 days of January seems like it pushes out the biggest bags and the biggest fish all across the state of Texas. It is one of the most unbelievable times that you can ever fish in this particular state. If you look at the guys that are out at like O.H. Ivy catching those teeners, 13, 14, 15 pounders, they're really starting to pick it up. I mean, just a few days ago, Jack York caught a 13 or 14 pounder out of Lake Nacogdoches here real close to me. And then we had Danny Isles and Brian Shook come in with a 41.56 pound bag. I think it was like 5'6", something like that. 41 and a half pounds, basically. And let me tell you something that's really unique about them. Is they were catching 40-pound bags and high 30-pound bags before forward-facing sonar or any of that was around. And I heard a rumor, and it's just a rumor, that they don't even have it in their boat right now anyway, which is pretty fantastic that they're able to go catch a bag like that without having any forward-facing sonar and everybody making the excuse, well, they caught a ball on jerkbaits on forward-facing sonar. And that's just not how Danny fishes. I actually fished a couple team tournaments with Danny way back in the day, and I mean, I'm talking like first couple of team tournaments he and I had ever fished, and we fished them together. He was in high school, I was in high school. We actually graduated from Hemphill together, and that's just not how Danny fishes. So, it's just really awesome to see when you see a guy come in like that and a team come in like that and win by such a big margin with such a giant weight of fish. And that they weren't doing that. They just figured out this one little thing. And, actually, I was looking up some stuff, and they actually caught a 49-pound bag of fish back in, 2020? And that was actually in February. That was a really big bag of fish. But I would argue to say that last week of January, all across Texas, is one of the hottest times of year for big bass. And a lot of people are going to ask, okay, why is it the hottest time of the year for that giant bass? And I think it's for a couple different reasons, personally. And correct me if I'm wrong. Believe me, there's so many people on the internet that know more than I do. And I know if one of you are listening to this, you're probably going to tell me exactly what I should know. But beyond that, the one thing that I have noticed is there's a really weird time between January 1st and about the 2nd to 3rd week of January. Every year, the fishing gets really weird, really tough. Everybody starts complaining like, man, I just can't seem to catch them. I don't know where they went. I was catching them so good, and now I'm not catching them at all, and I don't know what's going on, why these fish are not biting. Well, that is when those fish are truly in transition mode. They're leaving where they were, no matter where they were, whether it's deep, shallow, whatever. They're leaving and transitioning to where they're going to set up to go spawn. Now, I'm not saying they're setting up, they're actually on beds or anything like that. I'm saying they are migrating to the place that they like to sit before they pull up. And, I have a place, say, for instance, on Toledo Bend. Now, it hadn't been good in the last couple of years, but I caught one almost 12 off of it, and quite a few in the 9 to 10 pound range off of it, and quite a few 8-pounders. That about the first week of February for here, last week of January, first week of February, you could pull up and you had a chance to catch a 10-pounder there. Now, that particular spot was a secondary point leading into a spawning flat. So it was a do-nothing point. I mean, it didn't look like anything on, any type of chip, whether it be like on your Lowrance chips, your Humminbird chips, whatever. It didn't look like anything. It was just a turn in the bank. But for whatever reason, those really big fish would load up on that particular point. Now, when you look at like what Danny and some of these guys are doing, catching these massive bags of fish, in my opinion, they're setting up in really similar type situations where maybe it isn't a big time contour look, or maybe some big point that sticks out. Maybe it's the most do nothing little turn in a creek channel or a bend or something like that. But you can get on those type of places, and every time for me, there was 2 baits that I used that I caught all my really big ones in that last week of January, first week of February, and that was a Carolina rig, and namely a Carolina rig with an 8-inch lizard. That was always the way I caught them. And I'm speaking old school here. I'm not talking forward-facing sonar or any of that stuff. But old school way is you took a Carolina rig, a 3/4 to 1 ounce sinker, long leader, and that 8-inch lizard. I just always caught big ones on that 8-inch lizard. Or I caught them on a football jig. 1/2 ounce football jig, Rage Crawl, tour grade football jig, and I kind of alternated between the two, and most of the time you just had to drag it real slow. I mean, you had to be just crawling that bait across the bottom to get those bites. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's some other guys out there that'll crank them up this time of year, and I know they're very successful. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Danny didn't catch those fish on a 10XD or, some type of deep diving crankbait. I think he's sponsored by 6 Cents, so it could have been some kind of 6 Cents crankbait, but I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't catch them deep cranking, because that is his MO, is deep cranking and Carolina rigging and old school Rayburn fishing. And if you talk to any old school Rayburn hand, the baits that I just mentioned, deep diving crankbait, Carolina rig, football jig, that's the 3 baits that those guys go in there day in and day out. And if those fish load up on these places, these little minute places that are off the radar that people aren't seeing, then that's a lot of times what they catch them on, deep diving crankbaits, Carolina rig, and jig. I mean, that's just it. What I've been told by some locals in the past is when you find a place like that, it's really not about what you're throwing. It's just about the fact that you found that place. You could start out cranking, or you could throw a jig, or they're going to eat something better than others, but they're still going to bite if they're there. So you have to it's more important to find the area than to really, worry about what they're going to eat when you throw in there, because it's all about just finding them. And that's the hardest part a lot of times, is just finding where they are set up. And a lot of times it is the most overlooked places. Now, over the last few years, you've seen the forward-facing sonar stuff just go absolutely berserk. I mean, you're talking guys like Josh Jones and some of these guys out around O.H. Ivy, Lake Fork, and all these places that are using this forward-facing sonar like Active Target. And they're finding these fish and targeting them very specifically with baits, whether it be swim jigs or jerk baits or A-rigs or whatever it is. This time of year, those fish are going to set up on a lot of the, more similar places. Now, will they just go suspend out in 50 foot of water and they're sit 10 foot down off a stump? Sure. And I've seen it. But day in and day out, if I just go and fish the places that I think they're transitioning to with that forward-facing sonar, I can use it to benefit me in the long run. I'm not just, and maybe that's why I haven't caught a 13-pounder or a 15-pounder, is I have a real hard time just dropping my trolling motor in the middle of a drain in 40 foot of water and just scanning around until I see fish. I do way better fishing and utilizing my forward-facing sonar to help me find targets, help me find, a single rock or a stump or something like that, and then using it to catch my fish. But rarely will you see me just zigzagging out there in the middle of open water and trying to catch fish on it. But in the end of January, those fish really stop getting, especially like this area, like Toledo Bend, Sam Rayburn, they really stop pulling off, on the bait. Now, if it's super duper cold, they'll stay on the bait for a little bit longer. But it's almost like they transition into these areas, these spawning areas, and that's where you find those big loads of big ones. And I'm going to tell you guys, if you can get out on the water this week, in the next 7 days, you got a chance, especially if you're in Texas, the state of Texas. I can't speak for everywhere else, but if you're in the state of Texas, you got a shot of catching a good fish or a big fish or maybe multiple big fish. But this is the week that I would say, if you're going to go out there and try to catch some bass, this would be it. But I hope y'all learned a little bit about, fishing this week of the year and really focusing on not just going out there and scanning everything, but finding places where those fish funnel down to and leading into those spawning pockets. I really think you're going to have a lot of success if you do it, and maybe you'll catch you a big old bass. But guys, thank y'all for watching. If you get a chance, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see y'all in the next video.